Come on in, everyone. Come on in because we are here, y'all. We are here for what I think might be my final discussion around Love is Blind. Well, no, the reunion is coming up, so I probably will do something for the reunion. They had the finale, um, and we saw who got married, who didn't. I don't know if there were too many surprises, but I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about that because, as you know, I've kind of used this time with all of you to have, I think, maybe deeper discussions. And one of the things that was on my to-do list that you all wanted me to do was you wanted me to circle on back, spin the block, and go back and watch the interview of AD with Keya and Tyler after they, based on getting some backstory, some clarification, some context to their whole entire story versus what we saw on the show. And also to go through, as a lot of these contestants or participants say, the editing, the editing, the editing. And y'all wanted me to hear their side of the story. So I made good on my promise. Well, partially. I'm going to admit, y'all, I went over there to watch the interview. And after 20 minutes, I had to stop. I did. I had to stop. I couldn't listen to Tyler any longer. I'm sorry to tell you guys, I couldn't listen to the whole interview. And let me tell you why, because I want to talk about how she started losing me a bit in the interview. Because the first 20 minutes, she really monopolized the conversation. Kia talked a little bit too, and I'm going to talk about both of these things. But I'm a theme girl, y'all. I'm a theme girl, and I'm a strategist, and I'm a problem solver. I just can't get away from it. Is what I do, um, is what I enjoy. And I think it utilizes some of my God given talent. So let me just start off. When I first started the interview, I was like, the girls look gorgeous. They're beautiful. Um, it looks like they are on a healing journey, recovery. They weren't hopefully too damaged by this experience. So I was feeling good. I was really, really feeling good. And then, the first part of the interview, both of the ladies kind of mentioned about dating fatigue. Now, dating fatigue is something that you hear a lot of people talk about, right? That they're just tired. They're tired in this dating world. And like the lady said, there's piss in the pool. And even AD could co-sign on that. I mean, she's not in the dating pool anymore, but she just got out of it. I've been out of it now in a long, long, long time. So I really don't give a lot of, let's say, necessarily dating life, like what apps should you use? Because I'm too far removed from that. I don't know nothing about that, y'all. I really don't. But what I am is I'm a foundational person. And what you'll learn as you get older, that even though certain aspects of things may change as the generations evolve and go, there's always going to be some principles that get maintained throughout the generations, right? I know people think they're just inventing things. This is the first time we've seen that. Typically, it's not. Typically, this has been seen in other generations, and you can sort of draw parallels and stories, and you can learn from the stories of older people like myself. We may not understand everything that's going on, but there's parts of our history, parts of things that we experience that you can learn from, and you can adopt it, adapt it to apply to your dating life today. And no matter what era you're in, whether you're in the 20s or the 30s or the 40s, 1940s or 1960s, or here we are in 2026, there's strategies to winning, right? And if you want to win in the dating world, you have to have a good strategy. And what made me turn off this interview was because I could no longer listen to the strategy of Kia and Tyler, right? Now, when I say I could no longer listen to the strategy, I was like, your strategy was doomed to fail for the beginning. So I couldn't even really get to the part about Kevin. Like, I couldn't even get to the part where how Kevin didn't show up the way he should. I agree kind of with all that. I mean, do we believe that Kevin was necessarily ready for marriage? No, I don't. But what I got really stuck on was that neither were these ladies prepared for this show. I'm not going to say these ladies aren't prepared for marriage. What I'm going to say is these ladies weren't prepared for this show. And I don't know, somewhere along the way when I was watching it, like I said, the first 20 minutes, in my mind, I kept drawing parallels to swimming. I said it right, swimming, swimming in the ocean, swimming with sharks, swimming in areas in which you don't even know how to swim. Any of you out there a strong swimmer? Any of you out there are strong? I am. I'm a pretty. I've been, I've been swimming. I didn't swim competitively in my life, but I just grew up at the beach. I'm from California, LA. I grew up at the beach, going to the beach a lot. In my household growing up, we always had swimming pools. So I'm just a water girl, right? I love all water sports, water adventure, water swimming. So typically, if I'm in a group of people, am I all, I'm going to be amongst sometimes one of the stronger swimmers in the group. And I think about when you learn to swim, right, in big bodies of water, small bodies of waters, you learn the difference. You learn the difference between swimming in the big ocean versus swimming in a pool versus swimming in a lake versus swimming in a pond. You don't actually bring the same exact swim techniques to each of those different venues. You got to know where you are. You got to know where you're swimming, right? Things I can do in a lake, I can't do in the ocean. Things I can do in a lake, I can't do in a swimming pool. You see what I'm saying? Because if you do things in the ocean, or you do it in the swimming pool, you might hurt yourself. You might get killed. And oftentimes when you are a swimmer, you often notice other swimmers, and you say, that person doesn't have the fundamental of swimming. Those are the people the lifeguards got to keep an eye on because they're out there in the deep water. They're not prepared. They don't know how to swim. They don't know how to float, but they want to join in on the fun, but they're completely unprepared. And let me see something. Hold on a sec, y'all. I want to Google something because I love a Google. I love a Google. Um, when you think about strategies with swimming, and I'm gonna tie this all together about dating, y'all. I'm long-winded. It takes me a while to get there, but when you are learning to swim, I'm looking at AI Google. It says surviving rough waters requires staying calm, conserving energy, and if you are in a rip current, you're supposed to swim parallel to the shore rather against it. You've often heard this: swim with the current, not against the current. Stay calm, conserve your energy, right? Um, if you're out in open, rough seas, wear a life vest. If you can't swim and you're in the ocean, why don't you have on a life vest? You know what I'm saying? When you hear about tragedies of people drowning and you say, hey, you heard somebody drown, really? Um, did they know how to swim? They didn't know how to swim. They didn't have on no life vest. You start thinking, wow, did they learn how to float? Floating is one of the first things you learn in swimming. If you've taken your kids to learn how to swim, if you learn how to swim, you'll know that floating is one of the first things they teach you how to do. And the reason why they teach you that is because what I just read in AI, which is when you are in situations in which there is rough water, such as the dating world, you got to learn how to stay calm. You got to learn how to conserve your energy. You got to learn how to know where you are and not go to places where you're not going to have a high degree of success. If you're not a strong swimmer, you shouldn't be out in the ocean, right? You should be in smaller bodies of water. And I'm going to get to this because what I really now believe after watching 25 minutes of this interview is that both Keya and Tyler should have never been on Love is Blind. I'm going to say it again. They never should have been even on Love is Blind. We might say Kevin should have never been on Love is Blind because he's not ready for marriage. But I'm going to say Keya and Tyler should have never been on Love is Blind, Ohio. And you want to know why? Because what they both said at the very beginning of the episode, Keya told us that she is bicoastal. She lives, she has a place in New York and she also has a place in Ohio. And as of the time of this filming of this episode, she was full time in New York. Okay. Tyler tells us at the filming of this interview I should say she was full time in Atlanta. She moved. So I was like, wow, that sure is quick. You all moved to New York and Atlanta. You packed up from Columbus, Ohio, and you left. So let me get this straight. You come on Love is Blind to meet people who are rooted in Columbus, Ohio, right? And what you do is you come on this show and you start informing those rooted people in Columbus, Ohio, that you really want to live in New York. And as Tyler said, she really wanted to live and go back to Atlanta where her family was and her family unit was. And somehow or another, you believe that makes you desirable to other people on the show whose whole life is in Columbus, Ohio. Why the hell would you think that? Why the hell would you come over to date in a pond in Ohio and you are not even equipped to stay in Ohio because you are already talking about you really want to live in New York and you really want to live in Atlanta? You see what I'm saying? This is actually bringing more context to why Kevin, who had a mother who was ill and who needed caring in Ohio, was having difficulty seeing himself with these two women because he can't leave his mama. I can't leave my mama. You see what I'm saying? So, how am I going to ever be in a relationship with you when you have told me, you have informed me that being in Ohio long term isn't something you want to do? You just said you want to go to Atlanta. You just said you're bi-coastal. You live half the time in New York. You see, this goes back to what I'm saying is I can't even get to why Kevin isn't attracted to why Kevin isn't attractive to the ladies because I don't understand how the ladies even thought they would be attractive to Kevin. How can we expect Kevin to want to bond with women who are saying they're not even planted in the same city? Didn't nobody come on Love Is Blind to be in a automatic long distance relationship with a person who may not even be there? And Kevin knowing he can't leave his mama. You see, what Tyler explained in the first 25 minutes before I turned it off was that initially, initially, she was very upfront with Tyler. I mean, not Kevin. Tyler was very upfront with Kevin and told Kevin that she wanted to move back to Atlanta where her family and friends was, which is where her base is. That's what she said. She said, I think she said she was even open and honest with this about a lot of people. So Kevin wasn't the only person that Tyler was talking to. It just so happens that she was also talking to Vic, who's now with Christine and married to Christine. You see, and she said she also talked to another gentleman named Tyler. I don't even remember him from the show. But she said that ended very quickly within the first couple of days because what we realized on the first couple of days that there were some fundamental differences in what we wanted. Hear me out. Tyler said the relationship with Vic and the other Tyler fizzled so fast because early on we determined that there were some fundamental differences. Well, Tyler, I'm going to tell you something else. Just like those other men became uninterested in you very early on because they immediately spotted some fundamental differences, that's the same thing Kevin should have done. He should have actually ended the relationship with you very early on because you wanted to move back to Atlanta and him being firmly planted in Columbus with a mother who is ill and who needs caring for probably was a non-starter. He should have never continued talking to you. So here is what's ironic. I'm pretty sure Tyler is probably praising the Vicks of the world and the Tylers of the world for ending it with her sooner, cutting her off, letting her know that, girl, what you are bringing to the table in terms of in my life is not desirable. It's not desirable. There's really no need for us to talk anymore because this is kind of a non-starter. What Kevin didn't do, because like I said before, he's a people pleaser, he didn't deliver the bad news to Tyler in the first 2 days like the other men did. And what's happening now is he's actually getting the bad rap. When the truth of the matter is, what I want to know is, why was Tyler even here? Why was she swimming in an ocean in which she didn't even know how to swim? Why she didn't have a life jacket and she doesn't even know how to float? She should have never been here. You ever have an argument with a person and they are mad at the way you reacted versus what they did first. They want to make the conversation all about how you reacted to them, but they never want to talk about why they were here. Like I said, both Kia and the fact that they were not stable in the city or state of Columbus, Ohio, would make them a non starter to probably a lot of people. Everybody's not looking to meet someone new, get married, and then also move. And you might say, well, no, Tyler said that she would move to wherever Kevin was. We did see that. And that's what I was wondering because I said, hey, Tyler, when I saw Tyler and Kevin, all she talked about was she was willing to move wherever Kevin wanted. And Kevin was really pushing back on it. He was like, I don't want you to make that sacrifice for me. He says, I don't think that that's fair to ask you to make that sacrifice. And Tyler was like, well, I would do anything for my husband. I will move wherever he wanted me to. Now, I was wondering why Kevin pushed back on so much of it. One, I knew he was a people pleaser, but the more Tyler kept saying she'd do it, I was just, okay, Tyler. I mean, okay, Kevin, she's saying she'd do it. But you know what I realize now? He didn't believe her. He already knew what her heart was. You see, because what Tyler revealed to us was that in the first, when we finally see Tyler and Kevin on screen, they had already been talking for 5 days. She had already told him that Atlanta was where she wanted to be. Atlanta was where she wanted to go. He already knew that her heart wasn't in Columbus, Ohio. Tyler revealed to us it wasn't until Tyler realized that Kevin was also talking to Keya, that her wheels started turning. And she started saying, hey, I wonder if one of the reasons also why Kevin is wish washy on me is because he thinks I'm not stable in Columbus, Ohio. And that's why he's not willing to lock in on me and he's entertaining Keya. Because all of a sudden she started to realize maybe this idea of me moving back to Atlanta may not be that attractive to other people. You think? So that it was in that moment she decided to come back to the negotiating table and she decided to throw out there to Kevin, hey, I would be willing to come and move here. Well, by then, I don't believe you. We just spent 5 days and you've told me what your true heart is, where you really want to be. All of a sudden now you switching up and saying you want to move to Columbus, Ohio. I don't believe it. Kevin is thinking, well, you just told me how adamant you were about moving back, being around your godchild, being around your sister and your family. I can't even imagine making you give that up now. You spent the first 5 days telling me how much it meant to you. Now you're switching up on me, Tyler. Why are you switching up on me? Because she found out she was in competition with Keya. And what she found out was that maybe there is a quality about me that's not attractive to this guy. So, what I will do is I will try to lie and change my quality to appear as if it's what I want, but that's not really what I want. You see? So, what am I getting to when I hear people talk about dating fatigue, that there's piss in the dating pool? My question is if you are swimming in a pool or ocean with pee in it or rough seas, do you actually know how to swim? Are you prepared for those waters? Did you go out there without a life jacket on? Did you not read the report and realize that there were swells and that there were riptides? Or did you just run out into the water, not even giving any consideration to what the water was doing? You see, as a strong swimmer, what you learn is you learn to respect the ocean. You see, when I was young, I was confident in my swim techniques, but it only took one time for me to go out in that water and for that wave to take me under, for me to realize I'm not the most important thing, that I've got to learn to work with the water. I've got to learn to swim in the direction of the riptide. I've got to learn that no matter how great of a swimmer I think I am, at any point in time, this water can kill me. It can drown me and it can take me over. And what I want to say about Keya and Tyler coming to Love is Blind, dating on Love is Blind in Ohio, knowing that you really don't want to stay in Ohio, was disrespectful to people who were planted and rooted in Ohio. And if I were anyone planted and rooted in Columbus, Ohio, or Ohio in the near area, and you claim to a pod near me, I would not choose you either. I sure would not, because I don't even know you yet, and you already are asking me to make a big sacrifice for you. Why didn't you give any consideration to coming to an area in which you may not find anyone? Tyler was complaining about that there wasn't a lot of men to choose from. Well, why would there be a lot of men to choose from on Love is Blind when you run around talking about how you want to move to Atlanta? This doesn't make any sense. But yet, this is what people do in the dating world all the time. A lot of people in the dating world think so much about themselves, what they want to do. And they're out here looking for someone to just do exactly what they want in their life. They're not actually looking at how do they pair with other people. You see, and I'm not even saying you got to change yourself, but what you should stop doing is trying to pair with people who don't want what you want, right? Stop trying to go after. I've said this even in interracial dating. Why are you going after men who want to date women that are not black? Why are you disregarding other races of people, other cultures who do want to date black? Right? Why are you swimming against the current, against the stream? Why aren't you looking for more opportunities to date in waters and streams and lakes and oceans that are conducive to who you are? And then you also learn a healthy respect for these people in these dating environments. It's just crazy. So, like I said, I couldn't watch the whole interview. That's as far as I got, because once I realized I was dealing with people who don't see themselves, they see others. They see everything that Kevin did wrong. They see everything that Kevin wasn't. You see what I'm saying? And there's a lot of things he did wrong and a lot of things that he wasn't, right? But right now, I don't see Kevin on TV talking about these ladies. All I see right now are these ladies talking about Kevin. If Kevin gets on here and starts talking about how these ladies were not ready for marriage, then I'm gonna get on Kevin. And I'm gonna have to point out to him what's the areas that he needs to work on. But right now, all I see are people pointing out how Kevin was unprepared, what Kevin didn't do wrong, and they don't have any idea that they were not attractive from the get-go. In fact, I'm gonna leave it with this note. Y'all ought to be thankful that Kevin even entertained your bullshit. I'm going to say it again. All the other men didn't even entertain you. They said it's a non-starter. You know what a non-starter is? When you come to the negotiation table and you have such hard non-starters, we don't even sit down and talk. All the other men, it was a non-starter. And I bet they want to say it was a non-starter because they were black women. No, no. Before I even get to that, it's a non-starter to the fact that you come on a show in Ohio and expect people to already want to continue a conversation with you, and you running around talking about how you want to move back to Atlanta, or you're bi-coastal and you really spend the majority of your time in New York. Ain't nobody signing up for that. Like I said, be honest with yourself. If you can't do it with yourself, ask for an honest assessment by someone else, someone that's going to give you the truth and tell you, let me tell you what parts of you are unattractive in the dating world. You can decide to do work on them, you can decide to fix them, but just going out into the dating world asking, trying to look for something to take, it ain't going to get you there. It's not going to get you there. Like I said, learn the difference between swimming pools, lakes, and oceans. Learn a healthy respect, right? If you want to be successful, you need a strategy. You need a good winning strategy. And there's no strategy for winning when you create a winner and a loser. For a strategy to be a winning strategy, each person has to feel like they're winning in areas which are really important to them. And I'm going to tell you right now, Kevin's mama was important to him. He was not willing to give that up. That makes Keya and Tyler a non-starter. A non-starter. Anyway, that's all I got. Talk to y'all later. Bye.